Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of The Olive Tree. I'm Julia Fisher, and today we're back in Tel Aviv talking to Shira Sorko Ram, who, 40 years ago, along with her husband Ari, founded the Messianic congregation called Ma-oze. This has grown from a small home group to a vibrant congregation that is touching Israeli society in all sorts of imaginative ways. Now, we're used to large churches in the West, but in Israel, the actual number of believers in Jesus is still very small. But those numbers are steadily growing, as Shira now explains.
Until 1973, when that Yom Kippur War took place, the number of believers stayed in just like a handful, literally a handful. In 73, here and there, new believers did come to the Lord in Israel. My husband came to Israel in 76. And still, he will tell you that there was just like almost still very, very, very few. From 1976, Ari and I, then we did start a congregation in 1977, right after we got married, which I wouldn't advise anybody to do. And if I had it to do over again, I think we would have waited a year or two. And also, I got pregnant on our honeymoon. So here are these newlyweds trying to start a congregation, and me pregnant, and don't even ask, and we're penniless. And so my husband, who was an actor in Hollywood, actually went back to Hollywood to make some extra money so that we could keep going. So it was quite a deal. But there were a few immigrants who did start coming to the country at that time, and slowly around the country, things began to grow. And I would say over the next 10 years, after 1976, 77, there started to be maybe 1,000 or two in the whole country. Now we're talking about in the whole country. In 1988, Ari and I hosted the first Messianic Jewish International Conference. And even people who, let's say, didn't like the charismatic part of our faith, they came. And there were about, 800 or 900 from all over Israel, which was the first time that many believers came together. And then Sid Roth, who maybe some of you would know, brought in another 600 or so from the States. And so that was a large conference. And we were looking for a hotel. Where do you find a hotel to put 1,500 Messianic Jews in, especially in Jerusalem, where we were at the time? And, without getting a lot of trouble from the ultra-Orthodox. But there was a hotel going out of business, and they didn't care who came in. And so the owner of the hotel said, "I'm the rabbi, and I'm saying you can come have your conference there." So we did. And that was like the first statement of a larger group than just an individual here and an individual there. And that was in 1988. So that was maybe a turning point. Of course, there were a lot of other things. Certainly it wasn't just Ari and me, but that was one thing that we really enjoyed, seeing so many Messianic Jews from all over the country coming together.
So gradually, slowly over the years, things have grown, and there are now a few thousand, not a lot, still a tiny percentage. But you've always had also a great heart for the Arab Christians in Israel, haven't you?
Yes. The Arab people are fabulous. They're so hospitable and so warm. It is when the religious fanaticism takes hold, it turns a person into a monstrosity. And I'm sorry to use that word, but you see Arabs killing Arabs. And that is when they don't have that religious fanaticism. They are absolutely wonderful. And the Arab Christians of Israel are beautiful, beautiful people, and we just so enjoy working with them. And when we have a conference now, we put on national conferences here in the country, and we always invite the pastors of the Arab congregations, and it's really, really great. And we also invite the Ethiopian pastors, and it's really a great time for a mixing because, this country is a conglomerate. You've got Ashkenazi Jews from Europe. You have what we call Mizrahi Jews from the Arab countries, and you just have all of this, then the Ethiopians, and then we have foreign workers that have, in this country now by the loads of them coming over the border in Eilat. So we love working with the Arab Christians and seeing them reaching out even to Arab Muslims and bringing them to the Lord.
So let's bring the story right up to date and talk about an average week, if there is such a thing, here in Tel Aviv for you.
Well, okay. I write a monthly Ma-oze Israel report, and I try to bring some area of news that is current, but is from a Messianic Jewish Israeli point of view. And so I do a lot of research because I always have this fear of writing something that's stupid or not true, or and credibility is really important. So I spend a lot of time in research, and I write, and that usually takes me 2 weeks out of my month. Putting together that. But I think besides evangelizing and working in Israel, the other part of our call is to let the Christians around the world know what God's plan is for Israel and what part they have in it. So that's a very important part. Now, as far as Ma-oze is concerned, we have a growing media department that we're developing that could use use Ari and my full-time every single day. But we're creating videos for non-believers, and we're creating teaching tapes by the best teachers in the land all over the country. And we're putting together a Hebrew website that is going to be for Israelis at large. And really, today, anybody who knows anything knows that internet is the way to reach anybody in this land, in this country, and in the world. So that's one area. Then we're publishing books. So there's always challenges with our publishing of books because there's not a large enough pool of Messianic Jewish translators whose mother tongue is Hebrew and who know English so that they can translate. So that's another section. And then, of course, we have humanitarian aid in our branch called IStandWithIsrael.com. And we have, our vision is to help build up the body of Messiah in this country so that they can better represent Yeshua and reach more people with the gospel. So those are the main areas. And then, of course, we have a congregation, and we are mentoring leaders there. We realize every day of our life that the most important thing right now for Ari and myself is to ask God for fruit, and then that added part of the verse, fruit that remains. And so we're working very diligently to raise up leaders in our congregation for the many different tasks that's going to be in front of this new generation. And thank God there is a very good new generation in the whole country. They have a lot more chutzpah, if you know what I mean. They're more ready to take risks and so on. And so they're going to be a great new generation of new leaders in this country. So that's what we do.
You're also providing music lessons for many of the children in the congregation.
Yes.
Why?
We actually are providing lessons for children in, I think, 3 or 4 different congregations, including an Ethiopian congregation, who would never be able to take any lessons if we didn't help them. But we are wanting to see a new generation of worshipers. And most of the believers in this country are from families who could not give their children music lessons. So yes, that's a really important thing to us, and we're seeing new little prodigies come up through the ranks, and and we're instilling in their hearts, you are going to be worshiping the Lord with your music. So that's one of our fun and favorite things we're doing.
If you're looking forward to the future and the training of new leaders, that must mean that you've got a lot of young people that are new believers that you're working with. I know it's been on your mind for a long time to have a training center. Yes. Is that any closer?
Well, everything that we want to do in this country has always taken years, just years. But we are starting in April a class in a hotel that will be a Tuesday evening class. And we find out that when you have good teachers, that not only the believers come that you're wanting to mentor, but non-believers come because they want to understand more about our faith. Israelis are really searchers, and so they want to know. And so I believe that Tuesday night class can really expand, and we'll go from there. We take one step at a time, but it is the first step of this dream that we've had for over 30 years.
Shira Sorko Ram sharing more of her story and the story of Ma-oze, the congregation in Tel Aviv that she and her husband Ari started 40 years ago. And we'll hear once more from Shira on next week's programme. You're listening to The Olive Tree with me, Julia Fisher. And the Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund is a Christian charity based in the UK that supports the needs of both Jewish and Arab Christians living in the Holy Land, especially those involved in reconciliation. So if you'd like to know more about our work and receive our free bi-monthly newsletter, please either visit our website, www.olivetreefund.org, or write to me, Julia Fisher, at the Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund, P.O. Box 850, Horsham, RH12 9GA in the UK. Join me at the same time next week for another story from the Olive Tree. Until then, goodbye.